As a performer, you need to enjoy your show, you need to be there, present, under pressure.
My wife Andrea and I train Aikido.
It helps me very much to transpose that into my being as a performer on stage. I discovered a lot of Japanese aesthetics, influences, films, books, quite early, and then also a bit later my mother introduced me to Zen meditation. A bit later I started to train Aikido because I wanted to do something that also confronts me with my own fears, my vulnerability. When I do not train, I very quickly lose the connection, I lose the presence, the feeling for the partner, and also the feeling for myself, so the connection to my body and also the mental setting. And the similar thing happens in music when you're not playing, when you're not rehearsing, when you're not doing your exercises daily. But in Aikido, it very quickly catches me, so the discipline for daily training to just be present and to take it serious every day is a very important point. In our music, there are a lot of influences, and this Japanese idea of, for example, the focus on handcraft, on quality, on this craftsman spirit, for example, and also the reductionism to take things very careful and to work on things as a community, the idea of a strong community. A lot of the percussive tradition in Japanese art inspired me a lot, and also the way how sound not necessarily needs to be just beautiful, but also rough. This mix between ancient roughness and elaborate futurism always inspired me a lot. I tried to integrate that in the way how we are playing music as a community, but also how I compose music.
Manfred Eicher and ECM found us. They heard a concert in a church in Zurich where we played with Mobile, the acoustic group. Not a lot of people showed up. It was a bit a disaster, but it sounded very well, and it showed somehow our way of making music, and I think that inspired him, so I could meet him after that and talk first, and we had a long phase of development over 2 years until we started to record.
The ECM label has been around now since 1968. It's championed people like Steve Reich and Arvo Pärt and other lesser-known instrumentalists, composers. Manfred has received any number of Grammy Awards for his work in the classical field as well as jazz.
The piano mics, just to hear the Neumanns, to pan them a bit in. Less wide, so we have the sharps entirely out.
Yes, and
the others a bit in, so we have a more of a compact sound of the maybe of this kind of patterns, you know.
I never met a person that has so much knowledge in different fields of music. He knows it from inside as a player and as a producer and as a music person. This connected to the beginner's spirit, beginner's mind, when he comes into a recording session, in combination with his huge knowledge, is unique. I never experienced that before.
But again, can we hear the piano take the percussion down for a second?
Manfred Eicher's skill as a producer, he doesn't sit back and let the artist get on with it and drink a cup of tea and just attend to the balances. He may make suggestions about altering the structure. Why don't you put A at the end and have D come start it? Just give it a try, see if it works.
Great.
And then if you done the take and you go into the regie and you talk with Manfred and he says like, that was okay, or that was good, then you know like it's gonna be good, because you know all the guys he had listened to. I mean, he has ears like a freaking elephant. I mean, if he says something sounded okay, you can really trust him that it sounded okay.
Good.
I mean, it's just a band, right? I mean, it's like a bass player and a drummer and Nik and a bass clarinet player, right? It's basically an amplified acoustic ensemble. And yet it has this really unique kind of electronic sound, you know? And definitely part of that has to be Manfred's ability to capture that so perfectly.
I was longing for a project with somebody who had experience in visual arts, but more in the sense of light and space dimension also. I met Sophie Clemens the first time at Punkt Festival in 2008. We were playing there with the Ronin. I saw her pictures that were amazingly inspiring, because there was a kind of a light sculpture in nature. And it had this direct, archaic power, but also a futuristic kind of being. And that inspired me a lot. It spoke to me very non-intellectual, in a similar way like my music is expressed.
Nik came over and I said, I really love those images. Are you Sophie? I love the images. And he was like, Here, have a CD. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. But yeah, and it's when I took the CD back home and played it, and that's when I just was like, wow, what's this stuff, you know? And then I was a kind of fan ever since, really.
And that's how we stayed in contact, and finally this led into this project.
You know, we were talking about elemental things, talking about ritual and transcendence, and finding where our linking point was. And then at some point, he told me about this samurai poem, The Moon in the Water. It was like, oh, there we are. There's our little hook. It was encompassed in that poem, you know, ritual, repetition, awareness, nature, the elements. So that was our kind of starting point. We knew that I wanted to use water, but I wanted the audience to think that it was a black mirror. Because this whole piece was about really holding back, like doing the most, having the most effect, the least material. So you've got the kind of sculptural form, which is the physical set that he's on. And then you've got water, and then you've got light.
There is also a rain function, so that the water that you see in front and around the piano also can get into movement. You also hear the rain. That is a part of this idea that we have water in several states in combination with the music. Some things are pre-programmed also in terms of videos where we have to fit with cues. But this live moment was very important, that it can be every time a little bit different, and the setting is a clear structure and dramaturgy, but it has also these modular moments where we can do things a bit longer or shorter depending on the dramaturgical flow.
So this is where I made a kind of map of the various pieces. I needed to know the structure of it in terms of like where intense things happen, what the sections look like, so I could just have it at a glance. This is one of the very, very rare and wonderful moments where I was able to have a pretty unfiltered creative vision, you know, with Nik. We achieved everything that we set out to do. I had a choice. Did I want to make this piece the absolute best thing that it could be, or did I want to get paid? And that's kind of what it came down to in the end. I could have had no rain. We could have had no rain, and then we could have paid ourselves. But the rain was what everybody talked about at the Barbican. It was the thing that made it the most magical thing. We didn't compromise, and we got this pure artistic vision, and I think we have something very special as a result. Of course, I'm just like really grateful for Nik for trusting me and going with me on that.
In my case, earning money with making music is very complex because I have very different roles. I'm a pianist, solo in the band, I'm a band leader, I'm a composer, I'm a producer, but I'm also a writer. I give speeches, I give workshops to train people to share our knowledge.
I feel like the study of music and one's attempt to improve oneself as a musician and to hear better and to be more fluent, you're not doing that to make money. Or if you are, you're in the wrong business, you know. There are definitely traditions throughout the world where like virtuosity of one type or another is the most valued thing. But it's not a new thing that music that's relatively simple, that doesn't come with a diploma or certification, is the music that captivates people. Like, that's not a result of, you know, Spotify. That's just a result of human nature.
The contemporary music environment today is centered around music streaming. And if an artist can get onto one of the mood playlists with a tune, they can make quite a substantial impact on their income stream. They're adjusting, in popular music, they're adjusting pop music to grab the listener within the first 10 seconds to get a play registered on Spotify and therefore get paid.
Modern musicians are presented with a new kind of shape of an old challenge. The challenge has always been you have to find the balance between meeting people where they are and also presenting something that they might not be used to. If you want to make a living now as a musician, you need a lot of income streams.
My idea was always to learn a lot on all levels of music business. I never had just one source, but I have about 10 different sources, and if 3 are not flowing, it is not a problem. If we have 5 not flowing, it gets complex. So on one hand, everything depends on me as an entrepreneur, but on the other hand, it's also depending on the networks and how stable I build that up with partnerships on the different levels.
If you listen to electronic music, if you listen to the modern production techniques, timbre is really the thing that's pulling people in the most. And I think that's how it is a lot of time in Nik's music too. He has the instrumentation of a jazz rock new classical ensemble with the musical priorities of 2023.
We were invited to the Alpen Festival by Craig Richards, who is the master, the boss here, and the DJ himself. And he invited me, so I will play here with Ronin, which the electronic music scene always liked also our music because it's minimalistic, but it's also sounds sometimes electronic because we prepare a lot of sounds.
I see many similarities between electronic music and that. For example, it's a lot of repetition and a lot of development in sound during repetition. Weirdly, in our music, it's similar.
Why these kind of people like it. We have a lot of people from the electronica scene which like Ronin.
They're the ones who want to count and, I don't know, just want to get the complexity of this thing and get like, it's so complex, it must be good. And there are other people who just, they don't give a whatever about that. They just hear like, it grooves and they just want to move to it. So I prefer if we have both of them in the same audience.
Whenever I have time to compose, this just flows, it's endless. Therefore, I think the development will go on and go on. We discover new things. I will share new things with my bands, but also other ensembles. This develops very easily in terms of workflow, but I just need the time and the focus for it.
Is there a typical Nik Bärtsch fan? I would say no, really, because his music spreads across generations and spreads into audiences which are more acclimatized to a diet of pop music.
There are so many different typical Ronin fans. There are guys which are fan because they love the trance aspect. Others are drummers, they are amazed about my left hand. Some guys are amazed about Nik's clothes.
We were never searching for a contemporary sound. I mean, we don't want to be avant-garde or something like that. try something new and then there is nothing behind it. So I think that's the point about Ronin, because everybody has such a musical background of different styles who come together, and then we just mix them up and see what happens.
I think he is a great role model also for like Swiss musicians how to develop an international career. For me, an inspiration in a way to have clarity in your expression.
I think what Nik is doing, which is rather special, is taking this idea of polyrhythms, which is something that composers have explored for centuries, but just pushing the limit a bit further. And that's what's really exciting to hear in his music. For me, as a number theorist, somebody who loves prime numbers, that's what I'm really getting off on.
I cannot survive without music. It helps me in the very different challenges in this world to stay positive, to stay connected, and to believe also in humanity and the human community. So I find music really the essential kind of force. The legacy should be not more and not less, to be part of that and to be inspired and to inspire other people by really strongly work on that and believe in it.
Module 47 was composed for the album Holon, but it totally didn't work in the beginning. We played it in the band and it sounded actually like a simple jazz cool etude, because it's based on a simple idea of a metric modulation of 3 16 notes that are becoming a triplet. So we have but finally, when we played the piece and we played a lot of other modules, this 47 developed into a very powerful and interesting piece, and we finally recorded it for Lyria. And it also was one of the most interesting pieces finally that we played live. So it has a little shift in it. It's not only a metric modulation, but it's based on 5 16ths that are becoming 5 triplets. So we have the motive on top. So it actually should stay very fluid, very straight, and the bass shifts against it and creates that metric modulation. The bass and the middle voices are organized in 7, so it sounds like. When we combine this, finally, we have to play 5 times the 7 and 7 times the 5.
You look at the Module 47 score and you see everything fitting, but when you listen to it, it's like a marvel that anyone put that on paper. When those metric modulations happen, they pull you, they move you. To be moved and pulled by something that fits so nicely on notation, and to be completely unable to comprehend how it fits on notation from hearing it, and to be intellectually like, I gotta copy that, like in a theoretical way, but also be dancing to it in a purely like, I don't really care how this was made, this just sounds good way, while also being so technical and specific on the page.
Module 47 was also one of the best pieces that we played live. It had always a big impact on us and the audience. that's how it goes. That I learned to just observe the developments of modules in the band. Some do not make it ever, others reappear, and these are kind of cycles of developments.